He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, this is The Alex Marlow Show. It's also sort of the Charlie Kirk Show today. So I filled in for my good friend Charlie on his wildly popular show that's on radio, one of the top podcasts in the world. It's on Real America's Voice. It's on Rumble, YouTube. It's all sorts of different places, the X platform. All this is there, and I filled in. It was, I think, a pretty good show. I covered a ton of ground, and the good folks at Salem have given me permission with producer Misty to piece it together into a version of the Alex Marlow Show for today. So I think you guys are going to really like it. It's a very fast-paced show, and we cover a ton of ground. I start with my unified theory that everything Trump is doing, foreign policy, international, is related to China. He's speaking softly and carrying a big stick. And then I have John Carney come in. He breaks down all things trade, huge trade day with these new tariffs coming into place on Canada and Mexico and China. He explains all the arguments you need to be able to debate your Democrat friends on that. And then I talked about the Colby hearings, which are taking place. He is one of the top America First picks for the Pentagon. He'll be the number 3 guy at the Pentagon. Seems like a good guy. I don't know him very well, but everyone I likes him. And that's a good sign. I explain that as well until we get to our Peter Schweizer interview. Schweizer is here. We connect the dots between China and Ukraine and how Trump's Ukraine policy does parry China. And then I get his explanation of how a lot of what Doge is doing is actually cleaning up the Democrat superstructure that they've been able to put into place to win elections, where a lot of the money that Doge is uncovering from these NGOs is going to electioneering. I think it's a pretty brilliant take, and I round it out with a assessment of the Democrats' leadership crisis that they're in. And the key example of that is Andrew Cuomo. Yes, that Andrew Cuomo is running for mayor of New York City. I think this reflects on how lost the Democrats are. We cover a lot more in the show as well. It's good stuff. It's always good to be in for Charlie, and I really appreciate the folks at Salem making this special edition of the Alex Marlow Show possible. I will tell you before we get into it, a couple of amazing supporters of the show that you need to hear about, and one of them is Priority Gold. I was looking into what's going on with gold, as I often do, because I keep track of stuff, particularly on big news days. The price of gold is up today. The stock market is down big. The price of gold is up. The price of gold is up today. It's up over the last 30 days. It's up over the last 6 months. It's up over the last year. It's up over the last 5 years. And it is over the last 20 years, I think it's about, it's 565% up. So if you had bought gold 20 years ago, it's worth more than 5 times what it would have been then. So it's just one of these things where it is the sure bet. It's the sure bet of sure bets. And we have a terrific partner, which is Priority Gold. So I've teamed with them. It's very easy to, you text FREEDOM to 24999. They will give you a free wealth preservation guide. Your money is under attack, but one of the best ways to protect it is by diversifying with gold. You should have gold. And so why not have Priority Gold? Helps me, helps the show. PriorityGold.com. Text FREEDOM to 24999. Great people, great cause, and sort of the most unbelievable no-brainer you could have. Gold surged under Trump's last presidency, and there's no reason to think it won't happen again. I also want to talk about bone health. The Juvent platform, you guys have been on it. I was on it. I put on my Instagram. I've been on it. I've got the family members turned on to it. It is not enough just to care about cardiovascular health or eating right. Or we have a sedentary lifestyle. We are not stimulating our bones the way our ancestors have in the past. That's where Juvent comes in. This is going to help you with joint pain. It's going to help you with recovery. It's going to help you with bone health, keeping those strong bones. This is particularly important for older people. If you're 55 and older in the audience and you don't go to juvent.com/Marlow, you're making a mistake. I will tell you that. It is something you must look into on your own. And even if you're younger, like I am, I got some back pain. I'm constantly throwing the kids, roughhousing, all that stuff. It's been good for me. It's really helped me and is going to be a part of my life for a while. Juvent.com/Marlow. It helps you with your bone health, helps you with your recovery, and a very good sponsors of the program. All right, let's get into it. This is the Alex Marlow Show. That's also the Charlie Kirk Show. Check it out.
The Charlie Kirk Show. Every day, there's a battle for your mind raging. Information coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not. You found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. Thanks so much to my friend Charlie, as well as producer Andrew, for inviting me in today. It is a massive news day today. It's Fat Tuesday. Lent is tomorrow. Mardi Gras is tonight. The State of the Union, sort of. We don't call it that tonight as well. And tons of news. I'm editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. If any of you are not familiar with me, if you are familiar, thanks so much for helping us at Breitbart be so big and so robust and so strong. It's all thanks to grassroots audiences like these. If I'm new to you, Breitbart is, I would say, the OG MAGA outlet for the anti-establishment media. I guess MAGA before there was MAGA. And so we love to be the pioneers of this space and are so proud that people like Charlie, who got to start writing for us at Breitbart News, have gone on to do such amazing things. And this is a day, I think, to reflect on how far we've come as a movement. Donald Trump is playing absolute 4D chess right now. And all of this, and this is what this today is going to all be about. We have tariff wars breaking out. We got a big speech breaking out. All of it is about China. No one understands this, but this is all about China. Let me start with what's going on with these tariffs. Tariffs are now in place on Canada and Mexico, 25% starting today. He's also raising tariffs on China by 10%. Canada has now threatened retaliatory tariffs against us, and a lot of people didn't believe that Trump would go through with it. They didn't believe that he would actually enact these things because the Republican Party, the conservative movement for so long, has always been allergic to the idea of tariffs. We've always thought that tariffs are just going to raise prices on Americans. What they are is they're a tool. They're a tool used to gain leverage globally. And these nations, Mexico and Canada in particular, have not helped us keep China at bay. One of the things that's going on is fentanyl streaming into our country, starting through Mexico, but also through Canada as well. And these nations have not done a good job stopping it. Americans are dying. Americans are dying at a rate that is not sustainable. It is not. It is hurting the soul of our people. And a lot of this is coming directly from China, and no one is seemingly willing to crack down on it. Trump is doing what he can. He's got the border enforcement going. He's got ICE at the border. We're trying to shut things down, but it's not enough. He needs to convince these governments that they need to start helping us out some more. So he's putting the pressure on. A lot of people saw this as a bluff, but you can't only bluff. You've got to be able to enact these things, and it's a basic negotiating tactic that's going on. So one thing you guys may have seen yesterday is this New York Times story announcing that, the cartels they're in such disarray, they're in such dire straits, all because Trump's crackdowns. I'm sure that's true to some degree, but a lot of this is planted stuff to try to get Trump to back off. They want Trump to back off these tariffs. They want him to release the pressure. They want him to be able to start going slow, to calm down. He's not doing that. The market's testing Trump today. It's down as we're recording the show. We'll see how this goes on. But investors might be trying to control Trump. They don't want him to do this. They don't want him to actually flex America's economic might. But that's exactly what he's going to do. You might notice throughout the day that we're going to be talking a lot about Ukraine. All of Trump's Ukraine policy, what is it all leading towards? Mineral rights. Why does Trump want these mineral rights? Because it's so far in this world is dominated by China. China's got all of these minerals, and he's trying to get these minerals from Ukraine. We thought that was a done deal, didn't we, last week? But now all of a sudden, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a done deal. Maybe we don't know exactly what kind of minerals are there. Russia would tell you Ukraine doesn't have that many minerals. The EU would tell you that they have a lot. But that meltdown that Zelensky had was in the Oval Office. That will go down in infamy. Something that completely blew up a deal that was a 1 foot putt. It was a concession layup, and he couldn't get it done. Why was he freaking out? I'm wondering if it had to do with those minerals. I'm wondering if it wasn't just that he lost his fastball, which he certainly did. He didn't have to have this posture that he had in the Oval Office where he was insulting us. He was saying that war is coming to our shores. All of that was totally unnecessary, but it was partially because he'd been, dealing with Joe Biden for all these years, where all he would do is get a yes. All these Democrats giving him a yes all the time. Trump doesn't like that. Trump wants to be able to hold people to account and to be able to look him in the eye and get the truth out of him. He's not getting that from Zelensky. And I got a feeling that Trump was pretty suspicious that maybe these minerals were not exactly what Zelensky was purporting to have. So anyway, Trump is trying to get these nations on their back foot. And the point is that he is not satisfied with the way these governments are dealing with the prospect of China looming into various regions on the earth. They're encroaching in the Arctic. That's why he wants Greenland. They've encroached on Panama. That's why he wants the Panama Canal. All this is going to come out tonight. I just want to break down China's relationship with Canada. This is super important. Because when you look at Canada, Canada has had Chinese secret police in their country. They've had their level 4 biolab infiltrated by Chinese. 2 Chinese nationals connected to the Wuhan lab and infiltrated the Chinese biolab. There have governments, businesses, institutions, political parties. China tried to interfere in Canada's election to help Justin Trudeau win. So there's a national public inquiry into this and nothing was done about it. There's no significant regulation that's being done to curb China's infiltration into Canada. So they're in Mexico via the fentanyl. They're in Canada via those ports. They're in Greenland, essentially, via the Arctic. They've got dominance over our minerals throughout the world. Trump's sick of this stuff. You see this thing that's happened in Vancouver, money laundering of trying to get Chinese money into Canada to try to be able to power through and be able to get things they want. There's a strategy they have called the Vancouver model, where you bring money into a casino and then you can bring it home. They wash money through Canada. And it's so common that they've actually named it the Vancouver model. These casinos, of course, are owned by the government. So who's getting these kickbacks? You don't know. And they want to come here in the United States. They've already been here. But at least here, where we've had these secret Chinese police stations, what's ended up happening is that we've tried to investigate them, at least shut them down. Now, I can guarantee you not everyone in the U.S. government's happy about that. I'm sure they would love to just take the Chinese cash and move on. But we've at least tried to deal with it to some degree. We're also looking at the Bridge Colby confirmation hearing today. He'd be the number 3 guy in the Pentagon. He's a guy that Charlie's really championed in a lot of the America First movement. One thing that Bridge Colby understands is the number 1 threat is China. He's also a very serious technologist. He looks at the future. He looks to make sure that we've got the right technology available to counter countries like China who have us way outnumbered when it comes to populations. So this is another thing that is an affront to the American establishment that has been completely content to get rolled by China on trade and to get rolled by China when it comes to dominance in the geopolitical space. So this is where Trump is fed up with it. And whenever you see the maneuvers Trump is making throughout the day, note whether or not this has to do with tariffs, whether or not these tariffs, whether or not his pressure he's putting on Canada and Mexico, whether or not to take it literally or to look at it as a bigger global play to counter our number 1 geopolitical foe, which is China. Now, a lot of good is going to come from that process. I think we're going to get a lot of favorable deals for America. We're going to reshore a lot of manufacturing in the process. We're seeing all these reports about companies building factories in the United States. We just got word that a new Honda Civic plant is going to be built in the United States. We got word that tens of billions of dollars worth of new pharmaceutical facilities are going to be built in the United States. These are big deals. These are things that are going to generate tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars for the U.S. economy. And a lot of it's coming through because people are afraid that if Trump is seen as uncontrollable when it comes to tariffs, and you got J.D. Vance warming up in the bullpen, then they might not be looking at 4 years of MAGA economic policy. They might be looking at 12 years. And if that's the case, then why would they start building factories and stuff overseas in Mexico, et cetera, when they could build it here and then they won't have to worry about any of that? They're not going to have to worry about if the America First team that's currently in the executive branch of the United States, whether or not they're going to make it so that it's untenable to ship in those products into our country without getting tariffed to death. Trump has completely reset global economic trade. It's something to be congratulated. We got to stand strong today. A lot of people complaining, a lot of people whining. They don't like what they're seeing. It's a momentary thing. It's a temporary thing. We're going to get you all the details on today's Charlie Kirk Show. My name's Alex Marlow, the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, also the host of the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Network. You guys can check that out. We got a big show for you today. We're going to be getting into the economy. We're going to be getting into Ukraine. Peter Schweizer will be here later. John Carney, the number 1 guy, I think, in the country on economics and finance, will be here momentarily. Be hearing from you. Email me aloha@alexmarlow.com if you want to be a part of the show. I'll try to read some of those. Here we go. Let's do it. Jesse Waters had a great graphic yesterday. Investments in the U.S. under President Trump, $14 billion from Nippon Steel, Japanese company, $20 billion from Hussein Sajwani, $500 billion over 4 years from Apple, $500 billion over 4 years from Stargate, $600 billion from Saudi Arabia, $100 billion from Taiwan Semiconductor. That's a new one. And there's more. These will keep coming. Pharmaceutical industry, again, pouring more money in to the United States, which is huge because a lot of these companies, these patents, you get something approved by the FDA, and then you've got I think it's about 10 years on a patent for you to get production going, to make money, and then it's going to go generic and you're not going to be able to make any more money. So it's a big gamble where these pharmaceutical companies build plants. They're now building them in the United States. Eli Lilly just announced that they're going to be doing, I think, 4 new plants here. All of that is because they're in fear of Trump's tariffs. So don't freak out. Do not panic. These are very powerful when it comes to dealing with the Chinas of the world. It's also incredibly powerful when it comes to encouraging American innovation to come back here, American jobs come back here, and the Democrats can be totally powerless against this. One other thing that I think is a huge deal when it comes to Zelensky's panic. This guy calling for security guarantees. You know what security guarantees means? It means we're going to have to go to nuclear war on behalf of Ukraine. It's essentially what it is. It's even worse than a NATO guarantee. Now, we're never going to get a NATO guarantee. Any of you have heard any of my content, I think most of Charlie's content, you guys understand this, that Ukraine's always wanted to get into NATO. The Democrats want them in NATO because they just love Ukraine so much. But once you're in NATO, it obliges all of us to go to war with Russia should Russia ever invade Ukraine. Russia has always drawn that as a red line, and yet the Biden administration and much of the Democrats, even some establishment Republicans, have had that flirtation with Ukraine. Never going to happen. Trump will never allow for it. He's too smart for that. When Zelensky comes in, he starts demanding security guarantees. That means he's demanding war, but it's even worse than the NATO thing, because with NATO, at least people had to pay in. Has Zelensky offered to pay in, by the way, if he does get into NATO? No, probably not, right? He's not. It's just the thought of it is laughable. He needs our money. So here's the thing. He wants us to defend him against nuclear Russia. We're not going to do any of that. But all this comes back to the fact that Donald Trump's policy is putting pressure on all the right people in so many different ways. We're reaping so many benefits from it. We're going to be seeing the economic boom. It will get here. It's coming. Just be patient. Those of you who are panicking today, I don't think any of you are, though. I think people get it. I think people understand the level of 4D chess Trump is playing is so much deeper than anything you're seeing from the Democrats. Can we play that audio, guys, of the, what are we up to, 22 Democrats? I don't have the cut in front of me, the 22 Democrats or so, all saying the same stuff today. You guys got that one for me? No? I got to call the number specifically. You will see. We'll play this clip in a second once we figure it out. We don't have it yet. So the Democrat senators all saying the exact same thing about President Trump and Elon Musk. Do you guys think that the attacks on Musk are working? Please email me if you've got a thought on this, aloha@alexmarlow.com. Because, one thing that's so interesting about the Musk attacks is that it used to just be Trump. They would pick a target, they'd isolate it, personalize it, Saul Alinsky style. Now they got Trump and Musk, two people who are kind of untouchable. Musk is world's richest man and also world's most prolific man. He's doing the full DJ Khaled routine with his kids. Another one. I think he's up to 14 now. Is that true? Is that confirmed he's at 14? But anyway, the point is that I'm trying to make here is that these guys are very tough to touch. Musk's popularity is very high. Trump's popularity is above water. It's up to plus 9% in a lot of polls, the highest I've ever seen for him. And so just saying Trump, Trump, Trump like it's a swear word, Musk, Musk, Musk like it's a swear word, trying to call Musk a Nazi, they can't hang with this stuff. None of this is going to counter the fact that he's bringing all these manufacturing back. He's provided hope that we're going to get out of all these foreign entanglements. We're finally putting pressure on China. We're finally cracking down on illegal immigration, working to secure the border. We're going to annex the great state of Canada. Or do you think it'll be 2 states? All right, we got it. Let's play it. 108. Roll it, guys.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
It's all the same script. It's the same script. It's all 22 Democrats. Is this as lazy as it gets? Yes, it is. And they all think that if they just repeat a message enough, that it'll get through the American public. But don't underestimate this, because this has worked in the past. They did this with the Russian collusion hoax. They did this with the Charlottesville hoax, the find people on both sides myth that never happened. The go find me 11,000 votes. That was another lie that didn't happen. All of these things, they are under the impression that if they lie the same way often enough, then enough ignorant people in the public will believe it. The good news is I feel like people have wisened up. They understand that this is all just a game. It's all a ruse to try to get Democrat politics mainstreamed into the American culture. So we still have to be on guard, though, to understand, don't underestimate your opponents. It's always a mistake, but it's worth pointing out how lazy these people are, how they have no ability to think outside of some sort of a blob, Borg-like situation. That's all they got. It's not very much, but it's a little bit. So I think Trump's got him where he wants him, but we'll see what he has got tonight at State of the Union. We'll be right back with more.
Watching the news and start making some. The Charlie Kirk Show.
History, economics, the great works of literature. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. And even if you did, maybe it's time for an enjoyable refresher. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses, including their newest course on totalitarian novels. In this free 8-lecture course, you'll learn from Hillsdale College President Larry Yarn as he goes in depth on 4 novels: 1984, one of my favorites, Brave New World, Darkness at Noon, and The Hideous Strength. Even though these novels were written in the 1930s and 40s, they're highly relevant today as they show what a tyrannical government does to human nature. More importantly, they can show us that faith, family, and friends are worth fighting for. Maybe you read these books a long time ago in school. Maybe you've heard others talk about them, and they seem a little intimidating. Let Hillsdale College help you make the most of them. Go right now to charlieforhillsdale.com to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's charlieforhillsdale.com to register. CHARLIE for Hillsdale.com. Good stuff. Love Hillsdale. All right, guys, when I play that clip, the content of it is less relevant than I think the optics. So they're all doing the same thing. They're all in lockstep. It is the point of the Democrats right now is that they're an inauthentic group of people. They're trying to get people motivated because they're saying that you're a threat to their various groups, and they act in group behavior. They don't like the American individual. Donald Trump's the quintessential American individual. Musk is another one. We're trying to elevate individuals. One of the things I think makes America special is how we empower individuals. Charlie's one of them, just a total classic, a one of a kind. They don't like that. They like this groupthink. And making fun of Musk because he had the chainsaw. You guys know that the chainsaw was hilarious. We're taking the chainsaw to government waste. We are. They're acting like the whole goal is tax cuts. How often does Charlie come on the show talking about tax cuts? Is it never or rarely? I'm cool with tax cuts. I like tax cuts. It's not what we're all about anymore. It's not what MAGA is all about. We want to cut waste because what have we been funding in the past? What was the USAID doing? I've got a few of them in front of me. A transgender opera in Colombia. A transgender comic book in Peru. We got helping in Tajikistan, helping disabled people become climate leaders. Come on, contraceptives in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. Of course, the Taliban would got some of that fun cut into for the other condoms that had to go to Mozambique. Which, remember that dunk on Musk in the Oval Office where they pointed out to Musk that the condoms are going to Mozambique and not to actual Gaza? It's all crazy stuff. That's what we're cutting. And you don't get a permanent job just because you work for the government. It's the same way in the private sector, you don't get a permanent job. And there's such an outrage that if you can't write down 5 things you did last week that were productive, then you do not deserve a job. I think most Americans agree with this, and you have to be lied to by a lot of people very, very often for you to get convinced otherwise. So that's the plan. That's all they got. I don't think it's very much. All right, do we have John Carney with me? Is he here? John's our economic and finance editor at Breitbart News. He is also the author of the Breitbart Business Digest, which I co-author with him, but he does the heavy lifting. That's the open secret. John is, I believe, the single most knowledgeable person on Maganomics. John, it's great to see you in this context. John and I speak, I would say at least once a week, either on my show, The Alex Marlow Show, or on our premium membership, Breitbart Confidential, at the Breitbart Fight Club. Those of you who support us over there, I really appreciate it. That's where you get an in-depth deep dive with one of my consiglieres at Breitbart News, one of my cabinet secretaries, if you will, every single day. So those are a blast. John, we have slightly less time than usual. We got about 10 minutes here. I want to just start with what is happening today. What has Trump done, and what is the reaction to it, both domestically and internationally?
Sure. Today is the beginning of tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Trump announced right after he came into office that he was going to impose a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico unless they did a lot more to help at our border. They need to help on fentanyl. They need to help on illegal immigration. What he said very recently was the announcements they had made were not enough, that the time had run out and that the tariffs were going on March 4th, today, and that there was no more room for delay at all. Here it comes. We still don't know exactly, will they be 25%? That's what he has said. So that's, I think, the best bet right now, but it could come in, perhaps phased in, a 10% tariff, maybe climbing up to 25%. Maybe Mexico and Canada will do something at the last minute, but I think it's too late. They had a month. The tariffs were originally supposed to go on 1 month ago. Trump said, I'll give you a month. Come to me with what you have. They said they made some announcements about putting troops on the border. That obviously has not been enough. And so Trump is saying the tariffs are going on. There's also a 10% tariff that's going on top of other tariffs on China. But really what's happening today is a reaction to the Canada-Mexico tariffs. They're huge trading partners. The stock market does not like this, mainly because tariffs do not really get passed through to customers. You hear that all the time. Oh, it's going to raise prices. If it just raised prices, this actually wouldn't hurt the stocks of companies at all because they were just passing through and their profits would remain the same. What we're seeing is actually a confirmation of what we've been saying here at Breitbart all along, that the tariffs tend to be paid for either by the companies that are exporting into the U.S. or by the companies that are importing. In other words, they hit corporate profits rather than the prices on the store shelves. Canada has reacted very badly to this. They've announced that they are going to put on their own tariffs. That's a foolish thing to do if you are dealing with Donald Trump. Threatening back is not a good idea. And frankly, they have a lot more to lose in this, and they are going to back down. Mexico has tried to be more cooperative. They've sort of led the way here. I expect that they may announce some retaliatory tariffs. But in the end, I think both Canada and Mexico realize that a 25% tariff on all of their imports, except for Canadian energy, that gets a smaller tariff, a 10% tariff, will be very, very, very bad for their economies. And I think they'll back off. I don't think we're going to see a trade war. We may see a trade battle for a few days or a few weeks, but not a trade war, as people are putting it.
Well, I'm up for it. And as of today, the polls show the American people are up for it. We're much more inclined to do this. What do you think? Why do you think the American people have shifted and they're accepting of this and they want to see this out, at least for now? That's kind of the general consensus poll-wise.
Yeah, I think they've come to the realization that despite all of the rhetoric we heard over the past 25, 30, 40 years, frankly, about free trade, that the world trading system is nothing like free trade. Countries have much higher tariffs than we do. Countries have much bigger barriers to entry, non-tariff barriers, and that the U.S. raising tariffs isn't the beginning of a trade war. It's actually the U.S. responding to a trade war that's been going on for a long time, particularly with the Canadian and Mexican tariffs. Look, we have a real problem. We had millions of people coming across our southern border. Mexico absolutely has to help us with that. And I think Americans are okay with that. They're willing to say, let's do the tariffs in order to get our border secured. That's a very big priority for the Americans. We saw that in all the polls. Look, inflation and immigration were the two biggest issues in every poll taken of voters. And so I'm not surprised that they're saying, yes, Mexico must help us or they will pay a consequence.
So one thing that I think a lot of people are probably wondering right now is that how much this is going to affect Americans in terms of prices, because this is one of Trump's biggest tasks is he's got to get prices down or at least slow inflation. Tariffs don't cause inflation, but they could cause a one-time price hike. And that's something that people are not going to have a lot of tolerance for, especially the media. I think a lot of people at home are looking for Trump to drive down prices. So what's the path here?
So I don't think we're going to see a big price increase. Look, the Atlanta Fed just did a survey, a study trying to determine how much prices would go up if tariffs were passed through 100% or even 50%. I frankly think actually any pass through is going to be much lower than that. But even then, the pass through was very low. So a 10% tariff does not result in a 10% price increase. A 25% tariff does not result in a 25% price increase. It's more like a 25% tariff, if half of that got passed through, would result in something like a 0.8% price increase. So very, very small. We're not talking about a revival of Biden inflation. We're talking about a price increase that happens perhaps once and then doesn't happen again. Remember what happened during the Biden inflation years. It wasn't just that prices went up when we came out of lockdowns. It's that they went up and then they kept going up week after week, month after month, year after year.
Okay, so what do you say to people who are try to dunk on Trump and act like he's no idea what he's doing now because the Dow's down a little bit? For me, from my vantage point, John, it seems like a win-win because we're already seeing all this evidence of people announcing massive levels of expansion into American manufacturing, companies staying here because they don't want to get caught up in this trade war. And also, we're not just trying to he's got a few missions here. One of them is to get fentanyl out of our country. One of them is to send a message to these overseas countries that there's a new sheriff in town and you're going to have to stop taking advantage of us. But what is your top arguments to people who are skeptical of what we're into right now?
Yeah, so you just hit on it. Look, we have to send the world a message that we're not kidding around about this, that the free ride they've been getting with a broken U.S. trade policy is over. The American people voted against that. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing these huge investments come in where companies are pledging hundreds of billions of dollars to build in the U.S. because they know this isn't really just about Donald Trump. This is about a change in the way Americans look at global trade. So they're saying, so what companies, if they just thought they had to get through the next 3 years and then Donald Trump will go away and they wouldn't be investing hundreds of billions of dollars, they realize that the situation on the ground has changed and that we are now going to have we're not going to put up with what we did for, basically throughout the Cold War and then afterwards. So the global trade regime is changing. Companies are realizing this. And look, yes, stocks are down, but you cannot allow the stock market to determine all of your policies. Why even elect a president if you're going to do that? I think in some ways this is a very good test. If we were to back down in the face of stocks going down, 1.5%, the NASDAQ was down 1% right before we went on air. That's a bad day in the market, but it's not a catastrophe. There's no way.
Right. This is not some sort of massive global recession. And what are we trying to do here? We are trying to right some of the wrongs from opening up America to the Chinese market and getting completely rolled. That's what this all is all about. That's the thesis of the first hour. I'm Alex Marlow, host of the Alex Marlow Show, in for my buddy Charlie. Thanks, John Carney. Be back. All right, I brought up something earlier that is really important, that this Bridge Colby confirmation that's going on right now. He was introduced by J.D. Vance. Vance gave a very positive and upbeat speech. Kind of the highlights were that he is a big character advocate for Colby. Colby is one of these guys where he's a conservative and he's an America First guy, but he also was correct on things like the Iraq War, which was very important to me when I was kind of realizing that I didn't quite line up with the Republican establishment. When I was my entire adult life, I've been a Republican. I was registered as a Republican when I was 18, and I've never not been a Republican, but it's always been very reluctant. And part of it is because our political class, our establishment, has always been so irresponsible. The Paul Ryans of the world, the Mitt Romneys of the world, the Bushes, the Cheneys, all these people, you got the impression that they were in it for the wrong reasons and their values were not exactly where I was at. And when very smart conservatives started to explain to me just what a quagmire and a boondoggle the Iraq and Afghanistan wars had become, how much was being wasted, and how much of the money was being misallocated in places that would enrich certain people in our consulting class. This was very informative to me. It changed my worldview a lot. And Rich Colby's one of those guys. He's one of those guys who's understood that for a long time. And a lot of you are in Charlie's audience. You guys are the hardcores. You know this stuff to be true. But having grown up in the sort of George Bush era of Republican politics, we were all sold these wars. And even some of us who were, 17, 18 years old being told how important it was for America to go to Afghanistan, Iraq, and spend all this blood and treasure. This was a guy who was a conservative who was there, who was saying, holding up his hand and politely saying, no, that's not it. That's not what this is all about. And those are the type of guys who need to be in our Department of Defense. They're, I think, going to make it more likely, guys like Colby, guys like Hegseth, who are going to make it more likely that we're going to have a recruiting boon for this country, where we're going to be able to have some of the best and brightest because they're going to have confidence. Confidence is going to be restored. Look at it about how people talk about vaccines now. The overselling the coronavirus vaccine made it so that there's going to be massive skepticism of even basic medical stuff that it was presumed to be true. One thing that Colby can do is he can, I think, reassure people that there are adult, safe pair of hands who are involved in our major foreign policy decisions as well as defense decisions, the way we're spending our budgets, where we're focusing on things that will hold accountable the people who have been part of this establishment, permanent political bureaucratic class in Washington. We got some audio of him from his hearing. Let's play some of this. Let's play cut 105. Let's see what that sounds like, guys.
I would like to begin by expressing my deep gratitude to President Trump for nominating me for this role. I'm committed to implementing his vision of a defense and foreign policy of putting Americans' interests first and of peace through strength. I am deeply honored by the President's confidence in me. Thank you in particular to Vice President Vance for his exceptionally kind introduction and his confidence. I am profoundly honored by his support and presence here today.
Okay, great. We got one more. Let's play 106, please.
And my nomination comes at a time, as this committee has eloquently laid out, of deep peril for our country. Peace and the protection of American interests in the world cannot be assumed. There is a real risk of major war, and we cannot afford to lose one. I recognize these realities in my bones. It is my great hope that we can get through the coming years peacefully, with strength, in ways that put us and our alliances on a stronger and more sustainable footing. If confirmed, I would do all in my power to make it so.
Yeah, it's all great stuff, and it's all the America First focus is what we want, and the peace through strength approach is what we want. And I feel like that if this has been the crucial thing that has been lacking, I think, why the marrying of America First with Doge is so important, because a lot of what we need to be doing as a country in order to be prepared for the next war is to make sure that the funds that we are extracting at gunpoint from taxpayers is not going in the pockets of people like the Lloyd Austins of the world, who are in a revolving door from places like Raytheon into our Defense Department and then back, presumably, to some board to make a bunch of money. That's not what it's about. It's about making sure we have the cutting edge technology, that we have the best intelligence, that we have integrity with the American people so that the money is being spent in a wise way, and that we're focusing on the things that are the true threats to us. And we have the technology updated so that we can take on not just foes from the past, but what is coming next for this country. And I like these forward-thinking guys, people who've had a track record of getting stuff right before the rest of us. Those are the type of people you want in the room. And so that's why people that I know, the people that I trust, are excited about this appointment. I think that's why Charlie has rode so hard for Bridge Colby, why people like Don Jr. and others. J.D. Vance, of course, introduced him today, which with I thought, a very poignant speech. All this is good stuff, and it shows you that America First is not just some campaign promise. This is the real deal. So good stuff happening today. Very busy news day. I'm Alex Marlow, and I'm in for my friend Charlie Kirk. We'll be right back. All right, this is the Charlie Kirk Show. You're in the right place. I'm Alex Marlow. I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and the host of the new Alex Marlow Show, which is also on Salem, which is Charlie's syndicator for radio and podcasting. Great to be Charlie's colleague. You guys might remember Charlie got his start writing at Breitbart when he was just a high schooler. He sent us a pitch, and we said, why don't you write this yourself? And he wrote it up, did great, ended up on Fox News, and the rest is history. So we've been friends ever since, which has been very nice. A great guy, really looks out for his friends, and also is a monster on the airwaves. So I love to be here. And if you want to subscribe to my show, The Alex Marlow Show, I couldn't appreciate it enough. Thanks a lot to people over at Rav already cutting clips from the show. Just wizardly, just incredible speed. Just guys just getting the clips out and everything. We've got a lot to do. It's a monster news day. The sort of State of the Union is tonight. They don't call it the State of the Union for some reason on the first. I guess the president doesn't have a great sense of the State of the Union yet, is the lore, the history of it after the first 50 or so days of his administration. So we call it the State of the Union the other 3 years out of 4. But that's basically what it is. And I will have some preview. I've got some details from a source, I would say close to the president, on what we can expect for tonight. I'll have some of those at the bottom of the hour today, plus a bunch of other news. But I do want to welcome in right now Peter Schweizer, who is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of many, many books. And he is also one of our senior contributors at Breitbart News and one of my, I would say, mentors in the research space. Blood Money is his latest book. It's out now. He's the president of the Government Accountability Institute and the host of the Drill Down podcast, which I never miss. Peter, it is always great to talk to you, Breitbart senior contributor as well. Peter, I had a thesis for the first hour of the show, and I was trying to connect all these dots that I can, that for me, this first 50 or so days of the Trump administration, all roads lead to China. All of this is about countering China. And let me give you a rundown of what I'm talking about. Pressure placed on taking back the Panama Canal, or at least not having Chinese companies run the Panama Canal. That's about China. Greenland is about Chinese encroachment into the Arctic. Ukraine mineral deal is about Chinese dominance in minerals around the world. Tariffs, et cetera, on Mexico and Canada. All this is about that they've allowed their countries to get overrun with Chinese fentanyl, and they've allowed Chinese police stations, other things like that at various points. I think the list goes on. I think the icing out of Ukraine in that negotiation in Saudi Arabia and only including Russia, that was all about trying to pull Russia away from the Sinosphere and to the United States. This is what it's all about for me. I feel like everything is actually about China, though Trump will not say China. I think this is brilliant, and it gives us in the commentariat space a lot of room to play. But you know China better than anyone. What's your take on all this?
No, I think you're right. And look, what you're seeing with Trump is the arrival of something we haven't seen since really the 1980s with Reagan, which is a grand strategy. Looking at the road, looking at the map around the world and tracing what the challenges, what the threats are, and what the opportunities are for the United States. And we are essentially in a bipolar world now where it's China and the United States. So each one of those issues you talked about, you're quite right. China's at the heart of it. I think you're particularly right on the issue of Ukraine. Because what's happened is, look, I side with the Ukrainian people. What Russia did was terrible. Putin is responsible for this. But the fact that we have aggressively gone after Russia and essentially adopted the position that we're not going to have any negotiations has pushed Russia into the corner with China, which is actually not a natural fit. They're longtime rivals. They share a long border, but it's put Putin in this role of having to rely increasingly on China. If we are able to actually come up with a just peace agreement with Ukraine that moves Russia's isolation and dependence on China, that is a huge, huge win for the United States and a huge loss for China. So I think what's happening is very exciting. We'll see how successful these initiatives are, but I think the early indications are very, very good.
One thing that people might not know about Peter is that he first got connected with us at Breitbart when he was our editor of Big Piece, which was Andrew Breitbart's first national security foreign policy blog that he started. So Peter's got expertise in this way as well. And again, personal biases aside, Peter, what do you make of Zelensky's sort of meltdown in the Oval Office where he was vaguely threatening us, and then the mineral deal, which was as good as signed, apparently just didn't end up getting signed. And then he went on Fox News and really apologized for anything. He sort of doubled down in a lot of ways. All this, I don't fully have my mind around what's going on. From your perspective, what do you think is really happening?
Well, I think Zelensky went into the Oval Office and was supposed to sign an agreement. All sides expected that was what was going to happen. And Zelensky started to make a moral argument in the middle of the consummation of a deal. And I understand the moral argument he's making. But the fact of the matter is that Ukraine can't win this war. Russia, the estimate is Russia's suffered up to 900,000 casualties, which for the United States, that would be like close to 2 million people, an extraordinary number. But Ukraine's numbers are just as bad, if not worse, in proportion to the population size. They're, a third or a quarter the size of Russia. So as the war grinds out, they are not going to be able to win this war. So you've got to think about what's the best deal that we can get. And Zelensky's of the mindset that he doesn't want a deal. So he's trying to make a moral argument, and that's not the place to do it. So I think it was a big mistake on his part. And Europe is not really willing to back him. The Guardian had a really interesting survey that they put out yesterday where they asked all these European countries, people, do you think that Ukraine needs more financial and military support vis-a-vis Russia? And majorities in every single country say absolutely yes. Then the second question is, would you like your country to give more to the Ukrainian cause? And clear majorities all said no. So, Europe doesn't want to do anything other than moralize. So the fact of the matter is you've got to cut a deal. It's got to be a just and fair deal. Putin has already paid an enormous price for this invasion, as he should have. But you've got to try to cobble something together. And I think Zelensky thought he would go there and moralize, and it would actually be to his benefit. And, of course, Trump and J.D. Vance said, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, him relitigating the origins of the war, which was, I don't understand who allowed him to do that. Maybe he doesn't have good advisors. Maybe he's not that bright of a guy. I don't get it, because that was not what Trump cares about at all. Trump wants to bring this thing to a close. He doesn't care about really who started it. Yeah, Putin started it, but Putin started it because Joe Biden's weakness. I have a whole chapter on this in my book, Breaking Biden, explaining this. And a lot of it was that the Biden administration for years, and prior to that, Obama had these overtures, Ukraine, that they could one day join NATO. This is a total non-starter with the American people and anyone who I think wants to avoid nuclear war. What did you make of Zelensky's repetition that he needs security guarantees? What does that look like to you? Security guarantees, that basically means a promise that we'll go to war with Russia? That's insane. Why is he suggesting that?
Yeah, well, he's suggesting it because he wants it, but he's not going to get it. I mean, of course, if you're the Ukrainian president, of course you want the United States to say, we're going to protect you. The fact of the matter is the logical entity to protect Ukraine in terms of security guarantees is Europe. It's not the United States.
Right.
You can look back to the 1980s. I was a huge Reagan fan. The United States was not near bankruptcy when Reagan was president. The GDP ratio to our national debt is astronomical compared to what it was in the 1980s. We cannot afford to have those security guarantees. So, as somebody put it online, you have Europe, a region with 300 million people, asking the United States with less people to hold off a country with 160 million people, which is Russia. It's absurd. Yeah. Europe needs to step up. If they want to sermonize and say this is important, they should provide security guarantees. The British, French militaries and the Germans could absolutely do it. And the minerals deal, the genius in my mind of the minerals deal is not just that it benefits the United States strategically in getting the minerals, but it does wed us to Ukraine. We now have something of value for us that gives us an interest long after Donald Trump leaves the Oval Office. Who's ever president is going to be concerned about making sure that our mineral interests in Ukraine, so it weds us to them without offering an absolute military guarantee. And that's
J.D. Vance summed it up best. He said the minerals deal is a way better security guarantee than European troops. It's a long-term investment in their sovereignty. Perfectly put. Peter Schweizer, hang with me. We're going to talk about Doge when we come back. I'm Alex Marlow. This is the Charlie Kirk Show.
Making sense of the insane. You're listening to The Charlie Kirk Show.
Did you guys know that private student loan debt in the U.S. is totaling about $300 billion? About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, and that's where YRefi comes in. They will help you refinance distressed or defaulted private student loans that others just won't touch. They provide you with custom loan payments based on your availability to pay. YRefi is not a debt settlement company. They work with each borrower individually, tailoring each loan to each borrower's specific situation. You'll not be calling a faceless call center. You'll be getting a real honest-to-goodness person. YRefi can reduce your monthly payment and guarantees interest rates under 6%, ensuring affordability and financial relief. YRefi does not care what your credit score is. When the payment on your distressed or defaulted private student loans is so big that you can't even get ahead in your finances ever, YRefi is absolutely going to be your best option. YRefi can save you thousands of dollars by refinancing and even lowering your total cost. You can finally take control of your student loan situation with a plan that works for your monthly budget. Because of private student loan debt, so many Americans feel stuck and helpless, and they've even lost hope. YRefi gives you a light at the end of the tunnel. If your private student loan debt is keeping you up at night and ruining your life, it doesn't have to. Just call YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed and defaulted private student loans, which are different from federal loans. Many clients aren't even able to make the minimum payments for their monthlies, and their private student loan costs have just got them completely over a barrel. And folks, let's face it, distressed or defaulted private student loans, nobody's going to bail you out. Bankruptcy might not be an option for you, and you can take charge of your situation simply by contacting YRefi. You can have a co-borrower. They've got a 3-minute rate check option for you, YRefi.com, and you can get all these testimonials where you can get all the details. Here's the number, 888-YRefi34. That's 888-YREFY34, or log on to YRefi.com. That's YREFY.com. You can even skip a payment every 6 months. Good sponsor of Charlie, good supporters of the movement. Check them out. Alex Marlow in for Charlie. Give me a subscription over the Alex Marlow Show, my new podcast. It'd be very helpful. And thanks a lot to Charlie and Andrew, as always, for having me in the captain's chair for Charlie. Peter Schweizer is with me, president of the Government Accountability Institute, senior contributor to Breitbart News, multiple-time New York Times #1 best-selling author, and host of the Drill Down podcast, which I absolutely love. Peter, I want to talk about Doge. Give me your 30,000 foot on Doge. The left thinks that they've got us on this one. They think that cutting government waste to all sorts of, transgender initiatives in foreign countries is what Americans want right now. I think they're nuts, but they're trying to make it seem like Musk is infringing on people's privacy and getting private stuff. And it is essential for us to fund, trans Sesame Streets all over the world. I don't totally get their take, but do you feel like they've got anything here? And what's your personal opinion of how Doge is going so far?
I think Doge is terrific, and I think I'm very encouraged about where it seems to be heading. I think what you're seeing on the left is kind of a reaction mode because Trump's doing it. They're automatically against it. But there's also, I think, a deeper element here, Alex. I mean, we talk about, the waste and the abuse, which are, of course, huge components of this, transgenders in Guatemala, ridiculous expenditures here. But there's a deeper battle that's going on here because a lot of this money that flows through these grants and through these contracts are to the political class in Washington, D.C. It's a business model. You look at USAID and some of these government agencies, huge amounts of the contract money actually never goes to the developing world. It stays in the Washington Beltway to consultancies that are run by political operatives that help get people elected. So part of the pushback in Washington, D.C. is, I think, from the fact that, wait a minute, this slush fund that we operated for all these years is being shut down or is being exposed. So that's part of the resistance. And that, to me, is the most valuable thing. Yes, are they buying pens and pencils for, $25 a piece? And that's waste? Of course. The deeper issue for me is the fact that this has been a tool of paying off political allies and campaign contributors with our money. It's a business model, and that's being exposed. That's the most valuable thing that's happening.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And this is why I'm completely obsessed with this Stacey Abrams NGO that started with $100 and somehow had $100 in 2023 and somehow got $2 billion in 2024. Peter, I don't understand how this isn't just a monumental, earth-changing scandal. It feels like the sort of thing that if Andrew Breitbart was alive, he would have spent every day for 90 days just talking about this and only this until everyone got the picture. And I feel like we just moved on from it. I asked Lee Zeldin, who's the EPA administrator, about it because I guess it went through the EPA for this environmental fund about this on my Alex Marlow show yesterday. And he told me he's working with the FBI and the DOJ to investigate. But I mean, who knows if we're going to get to the bottom of this? Did that one jump out at you as a bad one? Were there any lowlights for you thus far the Doge has uncovered?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a bad one. But here's the challenge we face, right? I mean, and this is how bad Washington, D.C. is. If you give a $2 billion government grant to an organization that had $1,000 that was just started up a couple of months before, that actually may not be illegal. That's the shocking thing. And that's the problem. So if we're looking for Stacey Abrams to go to jail over this, it's probably not going to happen because they know how these games are played. And there was probably technically no law that was violated. But what you're seeing is what I call legal graft. It's like the old Tammany Hall corruption. They do things within existing law. Nobody's going to go to jail, but it's absolutely as corrupt as something that is illegal. That's why it needs to be halted, and that's why it needs to be prevented from happening. So exposure and embarrassment is great, and we need to find out who the decision makers are and make sure they can't do it again. But we should probably not expect anybody to go to jail because it's probably not illegal. Remember, the people doing this are the people that write their own rules. So they're going to know what the rules are, and they're going to avoid doing something illegal.
Peter, this is such an important point that you made also, that I think this money is going to those AstroTurf town halls that we're seeing popping up. I think this is about electioneering. It's not just about handouts and money making. I think it's even deeper than that. It's about creating a permanent structure for these Democrats.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see that in the government grants. You also see that in the Department of Justice. They will go after Morgan Stanley and say that, you violated these laws. And then they will negotiate a settlement for $300 million. And we all think, oh, okay, Morgan Stanley's now sending $300 million to the U.S. Treasury. No, the Department of Justice under the Biden administration, under the Obama administration says, well, make a donation to these nonprofit organizations to rectify the problem. But these are activist groups that are being funded in this way. So you have this large infrastructure of entities and organizations. There's one called the International Democratic Institute that we're looking at that got $180 million in grants from the federal government.
Peter, I got to leave it there, but let me plug all your stuff. GAI, the Drill Down podcast, all Peter's books are essential. We love Peter Schweizer. Thanks, Peter. We'll be right back.
on goodness and joy. That is
Speaking the truth, no one else has the guts to say. The Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, there's a lot of excitement in Washington, D.C. as we start the year, but I want to talk to you about something just as exciting happening outside of the D.C. Beltway, a revolution in the states. It's the education freedom movement. It's real, it's growing, and growing because some states, as they should, are putting parents in charge of the education of their children. Everyone knows education has the power to change a child's life, and anyone who's raised a child knows each has different needs, learning styles, and God-given talents. The fact is, parents know their own children best and know what's best for their development and future. Education freedom legislation puts parents, not zip codes and politicians, in charge of these important family decisions. It's why I strongly support making universal education freedom a reality for every parent in every state. To find out where your state legislature stands and to make sure your voice is heard, go to educationfreedomusa.com now. That's educationfreedomusa.com. Go right now. Thanks a lot for this great sponsor. All right, back at it. That's a Job Creators Network thing. We love Job Creators Network over at Breitbart, Marlow Show. We love all them. All right, today is a big day because it's the sort of State of the Union. And the White House has sent me some highlights of what we're anticipating. We're not going to Bigfoot Trump here. So these are going to be roughly what we're looking at. But the theme of the speech is the renewal of the American dream. There's breaking news here on the Charlie Kirk Show. 4 main parts of the speech can be broken out into 4 parts as far as we know. Trump is going to review his accomplishments from his first months, and I've got a long list of what those are, and a lot of them are going to be border-related. A lot of them are going to be things like stop hospitals not giving out puberty blockers, banning men from women's sports. It is still mind-blowing to me, and I know Charlie's, of course, been on this as much as anyone, but the idea that the Democrats' ideal is when all 3 podium spots in girls' track events go to men. Like, the Democrats will not rest until every podium spot in a women's track event goes to men. It's an unbelievable thing that they tried that for so long, and we were all just kind of went along with it to some degree. All right, he's going to talk about what he's done to fix the economic mess. He's going to talk about extending the 2017 tax cuts and not provide further raises in prices to the American voters. It'll be interesting to see if the Democrats applaud that, if Democrats want your taxes to go up, essentially. If the Trump tax cuts are not extended from 2017, which is coming up very soon, then it is a tax hike. So just know that the Democrats think that with all the struggles you're going through, hiking your taxes will be good. They will not applaud. But the reason why they will not applaud at this point is because they want your taxes to go up because they feel like Trump will ultimately get blamed if that causes more problems for you and your family. So be on the lookout for that. Trump is going to push Congress to pass more funding for deportations and continue to build the wall. This is one report that I have heard from some of my sources that the deportations are somewhat underfunded at this point, which makes a lot of sense because if you think about how aggressive Tom Homan has been and Stephen Miller have been getting out there doing interviews, Kristi Noem with her cool outfits. I always like her outfits, always looking great. What she's doing is she's sending a signal to people, stop coming, please don't come anymore, because that is the cheapest way deterrence is the cheapest way to do border enforcement, just is. So if you start doing things like having things that are expensive in terms of border security, then you got to rely on Congress to allocate a lot of those expenditures and a lot of those funds. So it's a lot easier when you just are able to message that we're borders closed. If you come here, we will deport you. It will be a big pain for you. And so that's why they're doing all that. And that's why I think they've been the most vocal wing of the executive branch to this point. All right, so he's going to talk about, that'll be interesting to see. Do you guys think Democrats are going to applaud more border security? No. And he's also going to outline his peace plans, which I think is something I'm really looking forward to. I think that Trump has a unique ability to bring peace to Eastern Europe as well as the Middle East. I think that the Middle Eastern countries via a Abraham Accord extension could potentially everyone benefits from it. Literally every country could benefit. I'm hoping he does a little bit on Gaza Lago. I really want to see him take over Gaza Lago. You guys saw that AI video from earlier in the week. Trump Gaza #1. It was so good. I would love to see if he could put up some golf courses there. We're building golf courses in Gaza. If he does not announce a Gaza golf course, then I'm going to be a little disappointed. I don't know if he'll do that the first year, but that's in my heart. That's what I want the most. Of course, he's going to talk about tariffs. The Wall Street Journal is calling him stupid or something. We have a Trudeau clip quoting the Wall Street Journal. We got Cut 99. Will you guys play Cut 99 for me? I'm going to watch this.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Yeah, so it's dumb all those pharmaceutical companies that are going to be building plants here. It's dumb that Honda's building a Civic plant here. It's dumb that HP's announced they're going to build a plant here. All these plants are getting built in Mexico and China. Now they're not. So it's not dumb. It might be something you disagree with, but Trudeau is, look, he's a nothing. He's about to go away, and he's been beaten by Trump. He's been vanquished by Trump already. We could annex Canada as the 51st and I believe 52nd state as well, the great state of Canada, the great states of Canada, I think. You got to leave some of the libs behind, but we're going to take a bunch of the good guys. But him calling Trump dumb, that's not going to, I think, be a good negotiating standpoint. If you guys want something from Trump, do you think calling him dumb would be the right move? So Wall Street Journal, very upset editorial board. They really don't like it. We know they don't like tariffs. This is the whole issue that I think the establishment Republicans have a religious belief in tariffs. Despite how bad NAFTA was and Trump basically redid it with the USMCA, we need to reset global trade. It has not worked out well for America. Part of the reason J.D. Vance is vice president is because of NAFTA, which was both establishments, especially Republicans, put this trade in place, this trade scheme, which basically outsourced American manufacturing around the world, and it gutted towns like the one Vance grew up in. And that's part of his rise. And that always resonated with Trump. Trump has always spoken to those people in our working class. And those are not the people who are getting crushed by a one bad day in the stock market today. They don't care. They want the tariffs. We like tariffs now. The polls they're popular. Even Republicans. We like tariffs now. We like it. It's a weapon. And it also assures that we're looking at medium long term. We're looking at America first. That's what it's about. So he'll explain this, and it'll be great to hear it because I know he can articulate this vision for us. So he'll talk about how the American economy can actually be strengthened by reshoring. This is the words they gave. They're sending out reshoring industries. I like that. Reshoring is very good. Manufacturing, steel production, et cetera. So how is the left gonna count? Okay, I got to do it. They got it for me. Okay, give me the Gaza AI clip. You guys are good. You guys are fast. 110.
Tunnels coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1.
Oh man, if that is not an earworm, then I mean that's just going to be stuck in your head the whole day. I was just completely grooving to that. Here's how the Democrats counter that stuff. It's give me cut 109. This is Congresswoman Velasquez. Play this one. 109.
And what the hell are you doing here in America? Go back to South Africa.
Yeah, so Musk should go back to South Africa. It's just pure xenophobia. Trump has the Democrats completely in knots. You watch them all weekend say that Trump is the biggest threat to democracy because he's not giving enough money to Ukraine, which is run by a dictator. Zelensky is now a dictator. Look, I know some of you are smarty pants. You're going to do some technicality that his constitution allows for him to declare martial law. But and when there's martial law, then he doesn't have to have an election. But he skipped elections. He is not of habeas corpus, which means that you can just arrest people. You guys seen all the viral videos online of people getting a forced conscription. He does not have a free press, and he's banned all the major political parties that oppose him. So what tenets of dictatorship are we missing? It's kind of a fascist dictatorship as well. Part of the fascists over the years, they would have the military uniform that they would wear all the time. Think about Castro, think about Mussolini. That's another overlooked tenet of fascism. So think about that. And look, I'm not entirely unsympathetic to Zelensky's plight. It's not a black and white thing. Putin's not a great guy. But when you suspend elections, you don't have habeas corpus, you don't have free press, you don't have an opposition party, That's a dictatorship is what it is. So the Democrats going all in for Zelensky all the time, where you saw them openly rooting against the United States and for Zelensky last week after he completely wet his pants during that Oval Office meeting with Vance and Trump, where he's threatening us wildly, doing all sorts of things to blow up deals that we were told were already done. And if people came out on his side, just know that you're on the side of a dictator over a guy who just got elected by every single swing state, plurality of the popular vote, and a huge electoral mandate. So, and they're countering it with xenophobia. We're going to send Musk back to South Africa. If I had said something like that, it would be nonstop. Be the lead story in the Huffington Post. Back to Charlie said something like that. Imagine the New York Times, the hand-wringing that'd be going on. Xenophobia coming from the Turning Point and Charlie Kirk show host. Ridiculous. But they don't have anything. And this is where I get very excited because I don't think that they're able to counter us in an effective way. Here's a clip from The View. Always going to check in with The View, see what they're up to. I got to say that Trump Gaza, number one, I love how Musk is eating the whole time. And he's also very svelte. The AI made Trump the same weight, but Musk lost a bunch of weight, but he's still eating the whole time. Should I hold this view clip for the next one? Let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll hold it. So after the break, I'm going to play a View clip. They don't know how to handle Trump because they can't announce that he's a dictator anymore. And so what they are trying to do is they're trying to act like Musk is really the president, but Musk is also illegitimate. And so Musk has no authority, but he also has taken over the presidency, which is odd because Trump was the bad guy for so long and he was installed by Russia and he's a Putin puppet. But they can't say that about Musk. And it adds to this sort of muddled messaging that is incoherent. That probably explains why in the first hour of the show, I played how all the Democrats are saying exactly the same talking points today. 20 plus Democrats all cut the exact same ad with the exact same script to message against Trump and Musk. And look, it's a tough day if you're in the opposition party right now. It is a tough day when you got the president who is riding high, is +9 in some of the polls, approval rating, highest he's ever been. And then he gets a State of the Union where he's going to speak to tens of millions of Americans directly. He always has great stagecraft. It's just incredible performance art for Trump, who understands TV. He understands this medium. And so Trump is going to have a great day. He's going to have a great night. And the Democrats there isn't much they can do. But everyone just repeating a inauthentic script is kind of pathetic, isn't it? That's the nature of what they were. If anyone watched the Oscars this weekend, I couldn't stop thinking of the word pathetic. Pathetic was the word. They have nothing. You know, they didn't say Trump's name once. They didn't say Donald Trump once at the Oscars. It proves they're feckless. They have nothing. They're not pushing back at all. I'll play some of their pushback when we come back. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. I'm Alex Marlow. We'll be right back.
Will not be silenced. You're listening to The Charlie Kirk Show.
So one of the Democrats' main tactics that they like to use, and the whole left in general, is they use projection, where they say exactly what they're doing and they accuse their opponents of doing that. That was the nature of the Russian collusion hoax. This is where it came from initially, is that Hillary Clinton's, one of her main weaknesses was Russia, because her State Department had allowed for the sale of our uranium to Russia via some of the reporting that Peter Schweizer came up with, that a lot of it's broke at Breitbart News, which is very cool that we had this. And this was a big deal, not to mention the fact that Bill Clinton had gone to Russia, had given a 45-minute speech, got $500,000 for that. And they had traditionally been soft on Russia in terms of policy. So when that vulnerability was coming out, they accused Donald Trump of being a Russian asset. So when they're complaining about that Trump does not like democracy, you have to look at the way the Democrats have behaved. They wanted to jail Trump. They tried to use lawfare to disqualify him. They rigged their own primary in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. They never accept the results of the 2016 general election. They rigged their 2024 primary for Joe Biden, and then they removed Joe Biden and installed Kamala Harris without anyone voting. And in the meantime, you've got them backing Vladimir Zelensky and not caring at all that he's completely suspended elections and that he is behaving like a dictator, a fascist dictator, if you include the strange uniform, the Al Sharpton suit that he wears. So all that stuff shows you that they're accusing us of what they're doing. Remember, Trump sold weapons to Ukraine proactively. Biden didn't sell Ukraine weapons until there was an invasion by Putin. Trump killed hundreds of Wagner troops in Syria, which was the Russian special forces group that they have. And Trump crushed the Russian energy sector by trying to block the Nord Stream pipeline and tapping a lot of America's energy resources. The Democrats have been much softer on Russia traditionally. They talk a big game, but they are not as strategic as Trump. So just note this. So all of this stuff, all their backing of Ukraine, it's all politics. They don't really care. I bet you anything they say stuff totally different in private as they're saying in public. I'm so grateful to Charlie Kirk, my friend, who has done so much to help me out over the years. And the latest has given me the opportunity to host his amazing show. He's got the absolute toughest radio clock in the whole radio business. I will tell you guys right now that this is what he does. You got to be very high IQ to be able to manage all the various streams that Charlie's on. And not to mention, he's got some other jobs too. This isn't his only job. So thanks to Charlie and producer Andrew, as well as Ryan, Dalen, Michael, Kylie, Daisy, who's been in my ear, helped me out and making sure I don't miss any of the ad reads, which I've done in the past. I've blown some of those in the past. Mr. D, Riley, and Blake. Wow, what a great team. You guys are fantastic. Everyone at Rav, Real America's Voice, already pulling clips. So cool. Appreciate that a lot as well. Our folks at Salem who syndicate my show, The Alex Marlow Show, and Charlie's do a terrific job as well. Some of the most dedicated people in the radio business. And if you do like what you hear today, please subscribe. Give me a 5-star review. The Alex Marlow Show is out now. Brand new show. Wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Rumble, any subscription or review helps me a lot trying to beat the algorithm. Very, very, very tough on us. Ooh, I'm getting a shot of this is Charlie and Governor Newsom, the influencer, Governor Newsom, who has nothing to do in terms of governance. The best thing he can do right now is debate Charlie. I love it for Charlie. I don't know how Newsom's going to do in this, but I'm looking forward to this. Can't wait. And I just had a great photo of it. I will add that one other thing I didn't get to, left on the cutting room floor. I'm really excited about Governor Cuomo. He's going to run for mayor because this is one of my main points I'm trying to make today is how the Democrats have nothing. They just found, is there anyone in New York who's not a crazy left winger? Is there one guy who's not totally crazy? Okay, this guy's not entirely crazy. We'll just run him again, even though he was disgraced for Me Too stuff. And not to mention, he allowed for all those people to die in the nursing homes. That I think was the big deal. His nursing home policy during COVID led to widespread death. That he trapped people in confined spaces who were the most vulnerable to the coronavirus. And then because he was good at doing TV press conferences, he got away with it. So just horrible, horrible stuff. He should be completely banished from public life in general. But instead, he's going to run for mayor of New York. And I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. Because New York right now, they hate everything that's going on. They hate the subways. They hate the illegal immigration. It's sort of become ungovernable there. But he did good press conferences. So I don't know. All I have to say is all of those people who died, thanks to Andrew Cuomo, they cannot vote in this election. Some of them might try. Some of them might try if the community organizing gets really good. But if the dead can't vote, he's going to have a shot. All right, I promised a view clip, so I don't like to let people down. I like to keep my promises. Promises made, promises kept in the spirit of President Trump. Let us play this cut. I don't know what the number is, but this is Joy Behar and Stephen A. Smith. Guys, roll this one.
Been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won a popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it, 89% of the counties shifted against. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
Well, it's a different definition of a mandate, I guess.
But the problem is that if you're the Democratic Party and you lost 49.8% to 48.3%, and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, that's an excuse for you to say, what we did really wasn't that bad.
Some people didn't
we should continue to do that. Don't continue to do that. Find a new strategy.
So Stephen A. Smith is a sports broadcaster, and he's an interesting guy. He's got strong opinions. He articulates stuff very, very well. But what I think is most interesting here, that in what's not being said, and is a theme throughout a lot of the content we've talked about today, is the left does not have any sort of leadership. New York City obviously not producing leaders, because if you got Cuomo coming back in there, if you've got all of these inauthentic, pathetic, old Democrats cutting the same exact ad, who's the leadership? Who's running this party? It's not Joe Biden anymore. It doesn't seem to be the Obamas. Who's going to step up for them? It doesn't seem like they've got anyone. They were hoping it was Vladimir Zelensky, which was kind of odd. He's not even tall enough to ride all the rides at Disneyland. Guy's going to lead the world. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it is something that we got to run up the score right now. This is why it's such a big night with Trump's big speech, his State of the Union type address tonight. We've got to run up the score. We've got all the momentum. It is time to celebrate, but it's time to keep cracking down, keep working hard. That's what Turning Point's all about. That's what I'm all about. That's what Breitbart News is all about, and the Charlie Kirk Show as well. Thanks to all of you in the audience. We'll talk to you next time. All right. Thanks to everyone who made this show possible, particularly Misty. Misty is something that I can't thank you enough for doing this. I know this is a heavy lift today, and you're doing great. All of you who subscribe and tell people about the broadcast, that means a lot. It helps me grow. If you see a clip of me that you like online or an article, please share. Again, if you're thinking about visiting those sponsors, that helps as well. That's today's broadcast. Talk to you tomorrow.